Hi, everyone. Hi, I'm Mike Harvey. I am head of communications for Web Summit, the team behind Rise. And Rise is happening in just under 2 weeks now in Hong Kong. And today we're going to be talking about how to hack the media, how entrepreneurs and startups should approach the media at an event like Rise. I'm really pleased to say that with me is one of the guys that will be coming along to Rise, one of the media stars who's coming along to the Rise. Is that Rahil? Rahil, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hey guys, thanks for the intro, Mike. My name is Rahil. I'm a contributor at CNET and Forbes. I'm being asked to just come on and chat with you guys about, how to deal with the media, how to talk to us, and generally how to get more features.
Great, fantastic. So Rahil, I think you were at Rise last year.
Yeah, I was.
You've been to lots of events like this. My background is a little bit, so I was a technology journalist back in the day, or a few years ago as well. And obviously, as a head of communications for Rise, it's absolutely my job to make sure that startups and media talk as much as possible, so that media get lots of great stories and entrepreneurs get their stories told. So that's part of what we're doing in this this how-to podcast. So Rahil, tell me, when you're thinking about coming to an event like Rise, what do you think entrepreneurs should be doing when they're thinking about talking to the media? What's the first thing they should be thinking about?
So the first thing, in my opinion, would be to understand your message, because I'm sure there's a lot of interesting things about your startup. There's a lot of interesting things about what you're doing, but you got to take a step back and sort of crystallize the thoughts you feel that we in the media would be interested in. So that could be in the form of writing a press release. That could be in the form of writing a simple bunch of notes. Just anything to help tell your story as succinctly and as clearly as possible.
Mm-hmm. So I always say that people have to prepare. You can't just rock up an event like Rise or
no, definitely not.
You have to prepare. So what would you think? What are the big key elements of preparation, would you say?
I would say that the first element is, because 300 journalists are coming down, 400.
Like that, yeah.
It's a huge amount. So there are a lot of us from a vast variety of different publications. So the first game is for you to actually figure out which journalist is from where. Mm-hmm. So, if you're more into consumer tech, you would look for journalists for places like CNET. If it's more of a business story, you go to Forbes, you go to NextWeb. So know your journalist. Don't just spam everybody. Don't just go hunting for everybody, because we journalists cover what we call beats. So my specialty, for example, is consumer tech and entrepreneurship. So that would be how you approach me, with those angles in mind. And of course, I'm pretty sure the Rise app has a list of all the journalists that are coming down. I think that's a very helpful guide to selecting your journalist.
Yeah, so one thing I should say, any journalists that might be listening to this who are coming to Rise, please download the app, because it's a way for you to reach out to people, and it's a way for people to find. It's a way for people to find you. Generally, I think we think that's true for the apps that we have at our events. They're a great way for people to connect, and that's true for startups and entrepreneurs, and it's true for media as well. So you need to think about the audience. You need to think about specific journalists that you're targeting, what's the best way to should people be writing a press release, do you think?
Well, press releases help. Well, okay, think of it from my point of view. Okay, I'm walking down a hall. There are thousands of people there. There's 400, 500 startups. There are friends. It's very chaotic. Now, think about it this way. I'm going to be walking around and you're going to be shoving pieces of paper into my hand. It's going to be a bit iffy. So what I would do is prepare a press release, because if we are interested, we will ask for one, and you should have one on hand. But don't go around sort of like flyers in a train station. Don't just hand them out, because chances are 70 to 100 press releases every day, we're not going to read maybe more than 3 or 4.
I should say that startups, have uploaded their press releases, any that they've done, and we go through them and we make sure that those press releases are available to the media. So we do have a way of getting those press releases to the media that isn't actually doing sort of thrusting their hand in the hall. But so that's really interesting. So perhaps it would be really interesting for people to hear, how do you prepare for an event from the journalistic side? How do you prepare for an event like Rise?
So for me personally, I mean, I'm sure different journalists have different methods, but about a week before I land in Hong Kong, I will take an exhaustive look at every single startup that's coming down. I'll look at people who are familiar, whose stories I've told before, and I'll look at people who I feel will be good for the publications I write for. I will also take a look at the speakers, of course, try to secure interviews, stuff like that. But when I go to conferences, I try not to have an agenda set in stone, because some of my best conference stories have come randomly. Have come from a guy just stopping me and saying, "Hey, I got this cool thing to tell you." So I always keep in mind who I want to talk to, but I don't restrict myself to that.
We were chatting yesterday, Rahil, I think, about what makes a great startup story, and you were giving some details around that. I think it'd be really interesting for you to say what you think makes a great startup story. Is it a human angle, a personal angle? What do you think?
So a startup is more than just a company. You're not just making a product. You're trying to change things. You're trying to create something that's not been created before. So there is a human element to it. There's a element of storytelling. So a great startup story is one that, like any great story, it has ups and downs, it has lefts and rights, it has pivots, and it all center around a great team that have overcome all odds to get to the point that they are at, and have the vision and foresight to sort of see this through to where it needs to be. That's my opinion.
So yes, and then we talked a bit yesterday also about the idea that one of the ways you've got to test yourself as an entrepreneur, as a startup, when you're thinking about approaching the media, there are lots of journalists, and I think probably I was one of them when I was a journalist, is that they use the so what rule, which is you told me this thing, so what? You think you've got the greatest product on the planet.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, I'll speak to 1,000 startups a year, and almost all of them will say that they've done something amazing, that they have something life-changing. And I'm sure some of them have, but if you aren't able to tell me how or why, I'll just go, okay, so what? The so what rule is especially here in Asia, as we're exploding this fast, the so what rule gets used a lot these days at conferences.
So I think, I don't know, when I was a journalist, I would always try and say to entrepreneurs that to people that you've got to be brutal with yourself. You've got to be able to, if you're going to make a claim, you've really got to be able to back it up. And you've got to be able to pitch it in the right way. So if you're writing the press release, if you're going to put the most interesting stuff at the top, you've got to back it up with stats or story or anecdote or quotes, the stuff that actually means something. You've got to think about the way the journalist would construct the story. And to try and do it for them. Does that sort of work for you?
No, definitely. So one of my biggest issues I have is jargon. So I'm not a developer. I'm not a program. I know stuff, but I'm nowhere near as well versed in programming and well versed in business cycles as you guys are. So when I read a press release and it's full of words like data disruption and next level this, I'm sorry, it's a bit hard for me to understand in the greater scheme of things why this matters. So I guess what I tell the startups is pretend you're talking to a man on the street, because eventually you want to go global. You want every man on the street to know who you are. So if you can tell your story succinctly to the man on the street, then when you come and talk to me, I'm able to understand and I'm able to relate to who you are and what you're making.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit. That's really interesting. So let's talk a little bit perhaps about sort of etiquette at an event like Rise itself. So, there's going to be a speakers lounge at Rise. There's going to be a media village, a media area. There's going to be all the startup booths over the 3 days and so on and so forth. What do you think is the best etiquette? What would your advice be for startups and entrepreneurs for the way they actually interact on a sort of
Okay, so last year at Rise, for example, it was well designed. So at the end we had the media village. But as the day went on, we saw people just hanging out there outside the media village, waiting for us to leave, and then they would sort of ambush us. Now, I understand that being aggressive is not a bad thing, but understand that we have X amount of hours in a day, and it's almost like a courtship of finding the journalist. You gotta tempt us. You can't just come into our face and stand outside the media lounge and keep trusting information. It doesn't work that way. So etiquette wise, I'd advise you to let us do our job. We know what we're looking for, and we aren't just there to hang around. I've work to do. I have articles to write. I have KPIs to fill myself. So my advice would be to do what you're there to do. You're there to show your products to your peers, to investors, to the people in the ecosystem, not to us. So trust me, if I see a crowd around your booth, if I see a lot of people engaged by what you have to say, I guarantee you I will come and check you out, and I will give you time, much more so than if you are just in my face shoving a piece of paper. Then you become desperate, and I hate to say it, but rude.
Yeah. So I think it's true. We get a lot of feedback from journalists that they like to be able to walk. That they want to be able to get out of the media village. They want to be able to get out and go to the stages and then go and do their stuff. But if they feel like they're going to get trapped a bit, then they just don't get out as much as perhaps as they would like. So do you think? Do you think that, I mean, how many, so just roughly speaking, and I think again this is an interesting point, roughly speaking, you told you had KPIs to fulfill. How many stories do you think you might be right? How many stories did you write from Rise last year? How many stories will you write from Rise this year?
Sure. So I don't like to work in absolute numbers. So what I'll say is this: there are two kinds of broad stories we write. One is a news piece. So this would be say whoever wins at Rise, or the sort of little nibbit. Say you're a startup with some traction and you're releasing something cool tomorrow. That's a news piece that goes out nearly instantly. I can do about, over a 3-day conference, I'll do about 4 of those. But then you get to the feature stories. So feature stories are long, often between 700 and 1500 words. And these involve multiple interviews, transcriptions, and analysis, statistics. So these are hard to do, but part of what I do. So I will often maybe do one or two a day. But then again, if the stories are really cool and it's really interesting, I don't mind burning the midnight oil for cool stories. So I don't want to give you an absolute number, but more than 5, less than 10, I guess.
And we were chatting again. We were chatting before, and you were telling me that one example of a great startup story that you got from an event. Could you tell us a little bit about that, perhaps?
There've been so many. For example, one of my favorite startups, and one that I didn't write about as much as I wish I had, was the winner last year, Ambi. The guys with the cool aircon remote.
Yeah.
So I found their story very interesting. I found that they were solving an actual problem. With Hong Kong, with so many aircons, so much issues with electric grid and all. So I felt that they had a real problem, they had a real solution, and more importantly, it wasn't just hot air. Because a lot of startups dream big, and nothing wrong with that. But when I meet a startup, my first question is, okay, that sounds cool, but do you have something I can play with? Even if it's a piece of accounting software, can I take a look at it? Can I work it? If it's a piece of hardware, I want to touch it. I want to be able to. I need more than just what you say it is. So I guess that's very crucial for me. Yeah.
Okay, that's really interesting. I think an interesting point. I think what you said there goes for lots and lots of journalists and lots of fields. So what would you say? I mean, obviously, there are going to be lots of journalists there. How should people react? How should people react if they try and get a story? They try and talk to a journalist, but the journalist is too busy. And so, should they take it personally? Do you think?
No, never take it. You need to understand that, like you, this is our job, and in your job you prioritize. In our job we prioritize. So if we say no, it's nothing personal. It either means that your story isn't right for the publication and the beat I run at. It could also mean that your idea isn't at the stage where I feel it's ready for, because remember, getting into the media is great, but once you're in the media spotlight, you face scrutiny. And if what you're doing is not up to snuff, then look at what happened with Ouya, look at what happened with Theranos, companies like that that have had so much media coverage. Every little problem is magnified to an nth degree. So if we don't cover you, sometimes it's just because you're not ready. So what you can do is ask us why not. I mean, most journalists will tell you the reason, and you should learn from that. And maybe there's a message there for both you and for your users.
Yes, and I should point out there will be journalists taking part in mentor hours at Rise. So you know, those short periods where we're going to program chances for startups and media and other entrepreneurs to get together just to chat about what works and what doesn't work, and perhaps give some advice and that sort of thing. So we have journalists taking part in that as well, which we always find is very.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic thing you guys do, and I wish more people did that, because sometimes we just want to talk to you guys without being, because every time we talk to someone, it's like, does he want me to write a story? I would love to just talk to them and let them know what I know, instead of being having the looming of does he want a story, sort of thing.
Okay, no, that's great. So, so what would you say is probably we're beginning to sort of run out of time in a minute, but sort of what would you say is sort of the key piece of advice that you would give for startups coming to Rise as far as the media is concerned?
I guess it's three main things. The first is prepare ahead of time. Know your journalists, have a succinct message, be able to shake my hand and tell me in a few sentences who you are and why I should care. Know your journalists. If I'm not going to write about your kind of stuff, don't try not to approach me. And when you do have my attention, be succinct, be sharp, be knowledgeable, and most importantly, if I say no, don't come and be like, yeah, but have you thought of this angle? No, but maybe this angle would work. Trust me, have some faith that I know what I'm doing, and that this just isn't right. I'm sorry, it's nothing personal.
Yeah. So we talked about make it personal, but don't take it personally.
Yeah, that's a fantastic line. I do want to steal that from you.
Yeah. Okay, you can steal that. You can have that. It's out there anyway. But yeah, that's fine. Well, I think we're probably running out of time. We've had the viewers that have been on has been rising rapidly as we've gone through, which is fantastic. We will be putting this up on the Rise blog, and obviously we have a media team on site who are there to help. So run by Eleanor and James. They'll be on site. And we'll be there to help out both on the media side and on entrepreneurs in any way we can. Obviously, it's in our interest for great stories to get told at Rise, and that's obviously what we try and do.
Just have fun. I mean, you're there to show the world who you are and what you're capable of. I mean, don't look at it as work. Look at it as a chance to spread your wings and tell a great story. That's what you should do at these conferences. Not don't just chill. Be chill.
I think that's great advice. I mean, the thing is, we always say to, and we talk to the startups that are coming, and we talk about you've got to do the hustle. The hustle is important. It's an absolute key part of every entrepreneur's tool set. But at the same time, yeah, you can have some fun while doing the hustle. Then that's absolutely fantastic. And
that's the best yet. There's no life like that.
We want everyone to have a fantastic time at Rise as well. Okay, we're going to run out of time there. Rahil, thank you so much indeed for your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you for having me, Mike.
And we look forward to seeing everybody at Rise in just under 2 weeks. Thanks very much.